You ever been to Missouri before, Steve?
I was here once to pick up a prisoner. We were driving so fast to get out of here. The prisoner said, "Excuse me, guys, aren't you speeding?" It was like, "Shut up and sit down."
Oregon County, Missouri, according to the sheriff, is one of the poorest counties in the whole state.
Small town, good people, I bet you.
Mostly farmers, I'm thinking.
A lot of churches.
We're headed to Oregon County, Missouri, where 30 years ago, Brenda Dunham, a young, devoted wife and mother of two, mysteriously disappeared. In this case, there's nothing. She just leaves to work one day, and we never hear from her again.
Well, first of all, we've got no body recovery. There's always the possibility that she's out, just moved away.
Plus, we're at a disadvantage because when she does go missing or get murdered, there's a time lag before anybody's notified. I mean, just think, had they known to go that very day or the day after, and a cop had seen things in the house to show one way or the other, did she move away or did she just up and get dragged away? It would have been there.
When Brenda went missing, no one in town realized they'd never see her again. But as the days ticked by, everyone began to wonder if she'd been murdered and if there was a killer living amongst them. That's what we're here to figure out.
The thing that breaks your heart the most about this case is that Brenda's mother, Eunice, kept on writing letters to everybody she could think of. She wrote to the new sheriff and the governor and the senators, please do something with my daughter's case. They break your heart.
I do. I got two daughters, and so do you. Can you imagine one of them going missing? I mean, you would never sleep.
We're here because of Eunice. And I'm like, you know what, Eunice, baby, we're coming to help you.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
There are so many cold cases out there just waiting to be solved.
The crime scene ultimately tells the story of the murder.
We want to bring justice to these victims. With no body and no crime scene, Yolanda's going to sit this one out, but Steve is a master at interviewing witnesses. And with a case this old, it's witness statements that are going to be the key to solving it.
Eric King.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Steve Smigol, how you doing, sir?
Doing good. How are you?
We'll go right on up.
How are you,
Good
sir?
morning.
I'm Kelly.
Well, I'd like to welcome you folks here. I really appreciate you all coming to help us and assist us with this cold case.
This is probably one of the oldest cases we've worked on, and I want to ask them what they were doing 30 years ago, but I'm afraid they might not have been alive.
Well, God's alive.
Dustin, were you?
I was.
How old were you?
I was one,
One.
actually. Yep. This case is important to me because, like we discovered that Brenda, she was such a sweet girl, and the fact that her own children has had to live the last 30 years not knowing anything about their mother, and her mother has lived.
How many old cases do y'all have?
We have another one.
Yeah, from 94.
2 total? Not bad. Y'all ready to get to work?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Sheriff, thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am.
Wish
Thank
us
you,
luck.
sir. It's a pleasure to meet you.
All righty.
I was right at 14 when Brenda disappeared, so I always heard the stories, what may or may not have happened. Her mother, her siblings, her children, they deserve to know.
Why don't you start with talking about Brenda?
Brenda, she was a young lady, prime of her life, married to Jeff Dunham, mother of 2 small children, I believe 4 and 1, and basically sounded like Brenda was living a life of a domestic abuse victim.
She had left her husband Jeff on a couple of occasions, and she sought help at some different shelters and with some churches and things that would put her up in a home.
Brenda Dunham was, by everybody that you talked to's account, sweet and friendly and very religious. She was crazy about Jeff Dunham, who she met when she was in high school, and the mother of a 4-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter, who were her whole world to her. But Jeff had a violent temper that was as clear as the bruises he left on Brenda's face. And the question has always been, what part did Jeff's physical abuse play in Brenda's disappearance? Start with the front of the story.
Apparently, she was seen on May the 9th. She worked at the shoe factory. She got off about noon or 12:30, visited with her friend for a couple, 3 hours, got her normal carpool ride home. Next morning, apparently she didn't show up to work for several days, and then the people at the shoe factory and the volunteers in Howe County started calling because of the history of domestic abuse and the violence, and was afraid that he had done something to her.
And what about Jeff?
He had given some statements that she does this a couple times a year, just disappears for a week or two, go to a shelter, go here, go there, and then she'll come home, and that they had marital problems, and basically just didn't sound too concerned.
Why don't we start putting everything on the board? We're going to start with, did Brenda go missing? Jeff says...
That she does it a couple times a year.
Okay.
She's being beaten on a regular basis, so of course she's going to leave.
I think the next big one is, we never found a body.
Right. She's keeping a separate checking and savings account.
Separate accounts, plural.
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
If Brenda ran away, she would need money. But after 30 years, Brenda's bank records are long gone. And even with today's technology, it's impossible to know if she made any significant withdrawals at about the time she went missing.
Okay, what else?
You don't have any physical evidence at all.
You mean like consistent with the struggle or a fight or
Anything,
blood or a
drop of
dinged
blood,
up wall?
torn clothing, nothing.
The trickiest part about investigating a missing persons case with a domestic abuse victim is that the primary motive for Brenda to have run away, Jeff's physical abuse, Jeff Dunham,
Yes.
the husband. Where is Jeff now?
Jeff's married now and living in Alabama.
Let's talk about his personality. We know he's abusive.
He was having an affair, had a girlfriend, and sounded like maybe more than one over the years, so don't sound like they were really married in anything but name.
According to one statement, Jeff wanted to divorce Brenda, but he loved their 2 kids. And after beating and cheating on his wife, it's pretty unlikely he would ever get custody. So you gotta wonder if he decided the only way to get rid of Brenda and keep the kids was to kill her. He wanted the kids, not
One
her.
of the kids, yes.
And he got what he wanted.
We didn't actually have an official report until June the
6th,
June the 6th,
1985.
filed by her grandmother.
30 days later.
Yes,
And he never even tried to find Brenda.
not that we're aware of, no.
It seems like the marriage just went rapidly downhill.
Yeah.
I want to know from Eunice, why did they even get married? If Brenda escaped her husband's abuse or died by his hand, we owe it to her, her family, and this town to try and uncover the truth. That was the house?
This is it.
When I first read this case, all I could think about was Eunice. Eunice was fighting the fight of trying to get somebody to look into her missing daughter's case at a time when law enforcement didn't treat domestic violence victims the way they do today. Knock, knock. Hello, Miss Eunice. I'm Kelly.
Do you remember me? I'm George.
Oh, of course.
This
is George.
I'm looking forward to finally meeting Eunice and 2 of Brenda's siblings, Rick and Debbie. Why don't you tell us about Brenda?
Well, of course, Brenda was my first child. And she's always, I would say, kind of a perfectionist type person. Everything had to be just so.
Mom and Dad would take off and they'd go to work. Well, Brenda was old enough to take care of us. And then she'd want to clean the house. She'd come in there with her broom and she'd sweep us out the door. And she would dance with the broom, sweeping the floor.
We used to giggle a lot together, just do silly little things. And she was just a great child. I loved her and still love her and miss her so much.
What do you remember, Eunice, from the beginning of Brenda's relationship with Jeff? What did she see in him? Help us understand why she married him.
I think she was crazy in love with him. I really do.
What was there about him that made her crazy in love with him?
Well,
He was funny.
He was funny.
and he was good looking,
He is
well
good
built.
looking. How much did she confide in you about how it was really going?
Well, she told me one time, haven't inherited a whole lot from you, Mom. But one thing I inherited, I wish to God you'd have kept to yourself, and that's your big mouth. Because it gets me referring to him. If he said anything, she'd say her opinion, you know, and it usually ended up with the knuckles in her face.
There's information in the file about the fact that she had opened an account in her own name. Did you ever hear her talk about that?
She did leave him briefly and get an apartment in West Plains.
Okay.
Yes, she did.
So she might have opened it up then.
When she had the apartment, did she have the children with her, or would he let her take them?
It's my understanding she took them when she first moved and he came and got them. He would not let her take the kids.
And he wouldn't let her take them.
She wouldn't leave. He wouldn't even let her take the kids to church.
What happened with your grandchildren? You never got to have any contact with them after the first couple of months?
Well, he moved.
Okay.
And I was only allowed to visit them in the state of Missouri.
And that was 29 years ago.
She was 14 months old and he was 5. Now she's married and got 2 little children of her own.
I don't know how you stood it. How'd you do it?
You get to where you just have to put full faith in God that He's completely in control.
This case is important to me because you think, oh my God, what else could that poor woman have done to get somebody to find her baby or find out what happened? And it makes you mad.
Thank you all for meeting with us. And glad to see you
Thank
today.
you. Seriously, thank you.
Eunice, I have never read a file in all of my years of being a mean, bitch-ass prosecutor of a mother as determined and hard-headed as you were. You did everything you could have done. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. We're here because of you.
Thank you.
Eunice, give me a hug, hon. We're going to do the best we can, sis. Okay?
One spring day in 1985, Brenda Dunham vanished, leaving her family, her 2 children, and a whole town wondering what happened to her. Brenda worked at the local shoe factory and she made a whole lot of friends there.
The new shoe factory had a lot of employees. There was over 400 at one time.
So we want to talk to all of our old co-workers to see what they can tell us about Brenda and Jeff's troubled marriage.
What kind of relationship did her and Jeff have?
So, terribly beat her constant. She would come to work with black eyes, busted lips.
You physically saw
Oh, absolutely.
abuse marks?
The biggest black eye I'd ever seen. I mean, he told her several things he was going to do to her. I do know the one that always stuck in my mind was he was going to beat her to their home.
Wiffle ball bat. Shoved her out of the car twice while she was pregnant with Jessica going down the highway. She lived in pretty much fear every day. But she knew that she could never leave because she couldn't take the kids with her. And I don't believe she would have left without them.
I think the only thing I remember about Brenda talking about leaving Jeff is she was scared to because she knew he would find her. And she said, Rhonda, if anything happened to me, would you take my kids?
Really? If anything happens to me, will you take my kids?
Yeah,
When she had left and run off to these shelters, do you know if she had taken her kids with her?
I think she did.
We all tried to get her to leave him because we were so scared of what he would do to her, you know. They put her in a safe house, and he would find her and have her come back home. She changed the locks on the house one time, she told me, and he come and broke in.
And when she's telling it to you, how's she acting about it?
Frantic, scared.
She just couldn't get away from him. Couldn't find anywhere to go.
I miss her. She's my good friend, and not knowing what happened, and her not being here with her babies, and I know she wouldn't leave them babies.
Jeff's abuse of Brenda was horrifying, and if she feared for her life, she may have very well run away. None of her friends think that she would have ever left her kids, but as hard as it is to believe that a mother would ever abandon her children, sometimes, unfortunately, it's so bad they really don't have a choice. And I've seen that before.
This is Bill Gosen.
A lot of the times, the best information in these cold cases comes from the actual investigators who worked on this case initially.
This mother called me and asked if I would check to see if her daughter was okay.
Retired Detective Bill Coates was one of the first investigators to try to solve Brenda's disappearance.
Now, do you know what Jeff told you whenever you went out there?
That he had no idea where Brenda was. The Assembly of God Church in Thomasville at the time said that, as far as we know, Brenda took off and went to Texas. Whether she went to Texas or not, I don't know. But I do know that she tried to leave him once before with the kids. And I understand he ripped the phone off the wall and got her off the bus with the kids. And, I thought right then, well, why isn't this woman going to get a restraining order? If she didn't like that, she didn't have to put up with it.
It's not unusual for people to question why women stay in an abusive relationship, but it is a complex situation. The first job I had at the DA's office was as an intern in the domestic violence unit and had personal experience with the same sort of thing happening to my mom. Women who are abused back then were ashamed and overlooked. I understand why women don't leave because of their kids or because of the money situation. I understand that.
If she got into the religion so deep, well, reborn Christians start a new life. She can't drag the old life with her, and the kids would be her.
Love Jeff. But we do know Brenda was a very religious woman.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
And according to Detective Bill Coates, that might have been the reason why she ran away, to start a new life with the church.
Hello.
Yes, is this Mr. Credemeyer?
This is Steve.
We need to talk to Brenda's pastor at the Alton Assembly of God Church. If she was thinking about running away for religious reasons, he ought to know.
Do you know if Brenda had ever discussed with you guys any religious reasons about a divorce or anything?
She never discussed the divorce.
Okay.
We had talked to her and visited her. She was a member of our church.
Okay.
The summer of the fall of 1984, Brenda had asked us to store some of her things for her, that she was going to be going into the shelter for battered women because she was being abused by her husband. I never knew where the shelter was.
Okay.
I got reports that Jeff was calling all over trying to figure out where she was. Between 11 and 12 o'clock that night, Mr. Dunham came to the apartment and asked me if I knew where his wife was. And I said, no, sir, I don't know where she is. He said, well, you got her stuff in your car. And he started cursing at me. He started kicking the door. He kicked a hole through the hollow door. He just was real fierce and real violent.
According to her pastor, Brenda was trying to leave, but not to start a new life as a born-again Christian. She wanted to start a new life, but with her children and not with Jeff.
She told me that he said that if she ever tried to leave him, that he would find her and he would cut her up in pieces and destroy her body to where her remains would never be found.
It sounds as if Jeff was becoming increasingly vigilant and violent each time Brenda attempted to leave him. But it's also important to find out how Jeff reacted when she finally disappeared for good.
So this is Pat.
So she knows she may have been a friend of the victim. Brenda's friend Pat called Jeff the day Brenda initially failed to show up for work.
When she first come up not going to work, I called and Jeff answered it. And I said, Jeff, I need to talk to Brenda. Well, she's not here. She's gone out for a walk. She didn't call. She didn't call in the next day. So I called back again and he said, she's not here. I can't remember if she took the kids or he took the kids to the neighbor. He said, I got back home and she was gone. I said, well, where'd she go? Well, I don't know. Well, Jeff, you need to find her.
Wasn't interested.
He wasn't, no. And she never came back.
Every time Brenda attempted to leave Jeff before, he would come after her. But now we're hearing this time he didn't actually care. The question is, was that because Brenda didn't try to take the children with her, or because he already knew Brenda was dead?
And Ryan, Rhonda's brother, because he's our West Plains bank man. Brenda Dunham would have needed money if she was going to run away from her husband, Jeff. But since all of Brenda's bank records are long gone, there's no way of knowing if she ever made any significant withdrawals around the time of her disappearance. But we do know that she disappeared May the 10th, 1985, a Friday, and at most businesses, that means payday. We've got a phone number to a man that we believe was the payroll manager at the shoe factory where Brenda worked. He might be able to tell us if Brenda ever picked up her last paycheck or cashed it.
We understand that you worked for the International Shoe Company back in 1985.
Yes.
Now, do you remember Brenda Dunham?
I do. She was a friend of my sister's.
Now, do you remember specifically whether or not that Brenda had picked up her payroll check or any vacation time or anything like that?
No, sir, I wouldn't have any recollection. I would remember it if she would have came in and got it. I would have remembered it.
So you would remember if she would have come in and picked her check and stuff up?
Yes, sir. We had 600 employees at one time, and everything was manually written.
Right.
It took time to process payroll, and everything was held back at 1 week.
Okay.
So there's no doubt she had a check left. If she disappeared in May, July was just around the corner, so she would have accrued the vacation time as well.
Okay.
This is great because Brenda didn't have a lot of money. If she had run off on her own, she would have needed every penny she could get her hands on. And now we know she had a paycheck and vacation pay waiting for her.
All right, thank you.
And we got a witness who can testify that she never picked them up. Dude, we just got the money proved up. Without the bank records, without the banks, you just got it.
Right.
Way to go. Okay, y'all, let's see where we are now. After everything we've learned, it's time to discuss the theory that Brenda just ran away. According to witnesses, even if Brenda wanted to escape her abusive relationship with Jeff, she would have never left her kids. On the few occasions that Brenda did find the courage to leave, she took those kids with her.
Do you know if she had taken her kids with her?
I think she did.
Jeff was even prepared to confront anyone that stood in his way.
As he started cursing at me, he started kicking the door.
But all of a sudden, the day Brenda disappeared for good, Jeff showed no concern at all.
Jeff, you need to find her.
Wasn't interested.
He wasn't, no.
Brenda never told her friends or her family or her pastor that she wanted to leave on her own. And it would have been practically impossible for her to do that without ever picking up her final paycheck, which we know she never did.
You would remember if she would have come in and picked her check and stuff up?
Yes, sir.
If you think that sexual assault cases are unreported and shameful, think about domestic violence. Even more common are going to be these kind of women. So these arguments that are up here, I mean, y'all can righteously sit up there and say, of course that's an argument, but, right?
Right.
It's clear to us this is not a missing persons case, it is a murder case. Now we just need to prove it. All right, and when y'all talk to Dean Dale, we need Jeff's words.
Sure. We've spoken to most of the people in Brenda's world. Now we're going to take a look at the people in Jeff's world.
I have a chair there, Dean. Now, Dean, this is Steve.
How you doing, sir?
Want to talk to you about Mr. Dunham. What do you remember about his personality?
I heard rumors about him beating the hell out of her. He come up there either 2 or 3 days before or 2 or 3 days after she disappeared and asked some really strange questions about the sawdust pile. It wasn't what he said, it's just the way he acted and how he said it, you know,
right.
that was kind of strange.
It's been 30 years and Jeff's boss still remembers there was something strange about this conversation. Those are the types of things that raise red flags in any investigator's training.
What was he asking specific about it?
When you was going to move it, where you was going to move it, and stuff like that, you know, normal people wouldn't ask stupid questions like that.
At this point, we believe we've got a murder case with no body. But this new information makes you wonder if Jeff may have inadvertently told his boss where he buried Brenda. How many sawdust piles in your county?
I'd say there's probably 6 or 7.
We need to check out this sawdust pile for ourselves.
there's the sawdust pile.
It turns out Oregon County is full of lumber mills, and all the leftover sawdust and wood shavings get hauled off to dump sites in the middle of nowhere.
This is just this one initial part. It goes back. This entire thing is just a mountain of sawdust.
This pile is 3 stories high and 3 football fields long. You could hide a body anywhere.
You can see how that's liquid right there. We can go up and touch that, and it would be just like mud. It's liquefied. You got all the acids and stuff that breaks down the actual wood material. It breaks it down and turns it into mush, and by doing that, it creates a heat.
Kind of like using lime on a body.
Right, and that's why it's black, because it's not that they've set this on fire, but it generated heat.
We know that farmers often use their sawdust piles to dispose of dead livestock. If a cow dies, you can bury it in a sawdust pile or other compost material, and then natural bacteria will go to work. In 6 to 9 months, a whole cow will decompose and turn to dust. You can only imagine how long a human body would last. You know, it's so unsmooth looking. If you had a pile that was fresh or dug, or nobody would notice.
No.
We're never going to know if Jeff buried Brenda's body here, but if he did, it's long gone. Of course, in this county, you've got more places to hide a body than you do people. Country boys know where to hide anything. So you got sawdust piles, you have all the ponds, you have all the woods, and you have all the caves.
All the caves.
You're never going to find her. We're investigating the 1985 disappearance of Brenda Dunham, who we believe was killed by her abusive husband, Jeff. We don't have a body or any physical evidence. How many people say, well, we didn't think you could prosecute without a body?
Yeah.
People still think that, and that's wrong.
Yeah.
The thing that makes me crazy, kind of like circumstantial evidence is a weak thing, is when people say, well, if you don't have a body, you can't make a murder case. That's wrong. And if you think about it, why would you ever want to reward a suspect who's good enough to hide the body after committing a murder? What we need are strong witness statements that will prove Jeff killed Brenda, which will hold up in court. And for that to work, they have to be admissible. On the Jeff Dunham side, we're only putting up ladies we talk to that are admissible. If the victim just tells a random girlfriend, if I'm ever dead one day, he's the one that killed me, not admissible. Anytime the person sitting on the witness stand says that they heard somebody else say something, what they're testifying to is hearsay because somebody else said it. So for the most part, anything a murder victim says is hearsay because they can't get on the stand to say it for themselves.
She changed the locks on the house one time, she told me, and he come and broke in.
But there are exceptions. Anything that a witness can say about Brenda crying or shaking at the time of the telling is admissible. And when she's telling it to you, how she acted about it.
Frantic, scared.
As any fresh bruises on Brenda would have been from Jeff's violent behavior.
She would come to work with black eyes and busted lips.
One type of incriminating statement that's also a hearsay exception is anything said by a suspect, since it's going to be against the suspect's own self-interest to say it. So as we move forward, the more implicating statements we can get out of Jeff's mouth through all kinds of witnesses, the stronger the case will be. So you have a witness who I hope we can find talks about how that very first weekend.
Definitely, she would be one that I really wanted to talk to.
At the time this happened, Jeff was dating a woman he seemed to care about a lot, and I put a star by her name because she was with Jeff at his house the very day Brenda disappeared and told the police that he was acting strange, that some of the furniture was out of place, and that Jeff wouldn't allow her in certain parts of the house. She could be the key to the entire case.
This is Dustin Kirkpatrick. I'm an investigator with the Oregon County Sheriff's Office here in Alta, Missouri. See if you'd be interested in talking with us. This is over the Brenda Dunham case. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
No, I don't know anything but remember the case. I don't.
We're under the impression that you were in a relationship with Jeff Dunham.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Is your middle name?
Yes, it is.
Drawing any maps of the home or anything, and making any statements that you were in Jeff's home and anything like that?
Absolutely not.
And you don't remember anything about Brenda going missing?
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so what the heck? It's the right lady.
Yeah, it's the right lady.
How can she not remember anything?
Is she that scared of Jeff Dunham?
When you have someone as crucial to the story as the woman Jeff was having the affair with, who he brought to the house the night Brenda went missing, you want to talk to that woman. And if she thinks that she's just going to hang up the phone and say, sorry, I don't remember, and the Oregon County Sheriff's Department is going to leave her alone, she's got another thing coming. Peaceful this time in the morning. That poor lady didn't know what's coming.
No, she is.
We tracked Jeff's ex-girlfriend down in Florida, and we sent her copies of all the diagrams she drew and all the statements she made 30 years ago. I would just start friendly with you. Hey, you got our notes, right? We were just waiting for you to call back. We'll see what she has to say now that she's had time to jog her memory about Jeff and Brenda Dunham.
I reviewed everything you sent,
Okay.
and I don't remember anything.
You don't remember any of it?
I don't.
Okay.
The first note in here is that you met Jeff in late February. Is that going to be 85 or 84?
I don't know.
Okay, but you know you dated a man named Jeff Dunham. Of course,
No,
you
I
remember
can't
that.
say that.
What about this diagram? This is a
Yeah, I
diagram that you
looked at
helped
that.
draw.
I looked at that too, and
You helped draw it.
yeah, I noticed that I had signed it.
And I mean, you know they didn't forge your signature because I'm sure you'd remember that.
No, I noticed that that's how I signed.
And they didn't make it up.
No, they didn't.
I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if she's embarrassed because she ran around with a married man. I don't know if it's because she's scared. But we need this woman to understand how critical it is that she tells us the truth. What is crucial to the case is the fact that he brought you into their home right when Brenda went missing. And the things that you saw and the things that he said during those very days that she went missing, that's what's important.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do.
And
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do.
And
I don't remember dating him. I don't.
no one's going to believe that. That you said, I kind of think he might have killed
I read
her.
that. I read that, and
You got to remember that.
I don't.
I kind of
don't.
think he might have killed her. Oh, my Lord. I've had lots of boyfriends and men in my life, but if any of them ever said, I kind of think he might have killed her, I promise you I'd remember it.
I can't help. I don't know. I don't remember.
Are you afraid of Jeff?
No. Again, I wish I could help.
Do you really?
I do. Absolutely.
It doesn't sound like it.
You know what? I can't help how you interpret this.
I'm not interpreting it. I'm just stating a fact. It doesn't sound believable. It doesn't make any sense. You can help us with this case. All you got to do is tell the truth. No one cares that you messed around with a man who told you who was divorced. They don't care. You know that. No one judges you for that. But you can make it right today if you would tell us what you know and what you saw and what you know is the truth. All you got to do is tell the truth.
Are we done?
Justin, you done?
I'm done.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Oh! I just want to reach over there and slap the shit out of her. Jeff's ex-girlfriend was a disaster. We had high hopes that she was going to give us admissible statements out of the mouth of Jeff Dunham. She could have been the key to this entire case, but she didn't have any answers for us. But there's still hope.
Hello?
We're going to track down other people who were close to Jeff to see what he may have told them.
This is an old case, and it involves a gentleman by the name of Jeff Dunham. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. We went out a few times, but it's not anything long term. He had some kind of stories about his wife disappearing.
Right. Do you remember anything about that?
Only what he told me.
What he told you is what we're interested in hearing from you.
I just had to ask him how come, where was his wife? Because he had the kids.
Right.
That she ran off with a preacher and he didn't know where.
Jeff told this witness that Brenda ran off with a preacher. Not only is he changing his story yet again about where Brenda went, but it came directly out of Jeff's mouth, so it's admissible evidence. She ran off with a preacher? Oh my God, that's great. That's great. We've got one last witness to talk to.
Right there.
She's scared and apprehensive, and we don't blame her.
I wish I just had settled.
Right. We're trying.
It's ate at me for 30 years now.
I understand.
One night, he was drunk. He told me, that if she ever tried to leave with the kids, he would kill her.
Oh, Brenda, if she ever tried to leave with the kids, excellent.
He's the one person that just literally scares me to death because I think, that he's capable of it. And to this day, I'm still scared.
Turn right after 1,000 feet onto I-65 North.
I-65.
It's been 30 years since Jeff Dunham actually spoke to police about his wife's disappearance. I think he's overdue for a visit. He's never lawyered up. He's never completely lawyered up.
No.
He says he's made some statements. If we can just get him to go over those statements, see where we got him, see what he changes, if anything.
It'll be interesting to see what his version of events are.
See, he's got those Marshall Mallow eyes that open up all white when he sees your smiling face there.
Turn right after 12 miles.
We tracked Jeff down to his home in suburban Alabama. Looks like he's done all right for himself here. And he has no idea we're about to show up on his doorstep.
Hello, sir.
How you doing?
We're looking for Jeff Dunham. I'm him. Jeff, my name's Eric King. I'm from the Oregon County Sheriff's Office up in Alton, Missouri. I'd like to visit with you for a few minutes if I could.
What about?
About Brenda's disappearance.
No. I've done talked to them before. They wouldn't listen before. They didn't check any stuff before.
Who did you actually talk to? Because what I've got an old case file, and it's one of those that I grew up hearing about, and I've always heard the stories of this and that, and just want to try to see if we can figure it out.
You guys need to go through the lawyer I had back then.
Okay.
You guys need to leave.
Okay.
It's disappointing, but in 30 years, Jeff has never been eager to talk to police about his wife's disappearance. So I'm not surprised. You can feel his
rage.
Yeah, he's mad. He knows. You can see him there. No, he wasn't going to let us in that door.
No, not at all. We ready to bring in Miss Krask?
Yes, please. Jeff Dunham still denies that he ever had anything to do with his wife's disappearance. But after everything that we've uncovered, we have built a solid circumstantial evidence case that he killed her.
Hi. Jennifer Krask.
Kelly, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
The good news is that the Oregon County prosecuting attorney has agreed to a preliminary meeting to discuss all this with us.
So what makes you think that she didn't run off?
I mean, for one, out of the mouths of everybody that she's worked with and everybody she's talked to, that says she never would have left her kids.
Brenda's children meant everything to her. And when she tried to leave, she always took them with her.
And I don't believe she would have left without him.
But when Brenda finally disappeared, Jeff didn't seem to care at all.
Jeff never showed any concern for Brenda being gone.
So when she had left before, did he actively try to find her?
Yes, we've got statements that he would go and find wherever she was at and would bring her back home.
Jeff had a horrible temper and physically abused Brenda.
One of the times she left and went to a shelter, Jeff actually went to the pastor's house and kicked the door down.
And he started cursing at me. He started kicking the door.
Jeff himself even threatened to kill her.
He told me if she ever tried to leave with the kids, he would kill her.
His stories about Brenda's disappearance were constantly changing. From she routinely left town to she went for a walk and never returned.
Well, she's not here. She's gone out for a walk.
To she ran away with a preacher.
And she ran off with a preacher and she didn't know where.
But we know that Brenda never picked up her last paycheck or her vacation pay, and in 30 years she's never been seen or heard from again.
Well, I think I'd like to take the time and process it all. She had a terrible wife, a victim of domestic violence. He's making these threats, and then she's missing. You all have definitely done a thorough job. Very good job.
The prosecuting attorney is going to review the case and hopefully we'll be able to move it forward. I bet poor Eunice has been doing nothing but thinking about this the whole week. What do you think?
Probably. I'm sure she's had some sleepless nights.
She's had some sleepless years. After the meeting with the prosecuting attorney, Jennifer Krask, and Dustin and Eric, the sheriff and I are going to go talk to Eunice, her son Rick, and her daughter Debbie.
Been hanging in there, girl?
Yeah.
Good. We go sit down and...
Y'all been checking on her every day?
No.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Well, I'm really pleased with our results that we've came up with. Dustin and Eric have really worked hard with Miss Kelly and Steve, and I will be the first one to tell you that I feel really good about it.
So we met with Jennifer Krask today, the prosecutor. She gets it. She's righteous. Like any lawyer, she wants to lead it all herself, but it was a great week. And in a court of law in the state of Missouri, if somebody tried to make a case that Brenda Dunham ran off and left her children, they'd be looking like a fool.
I'm glad they're on the case, that's for sure, to find out before my mom passes away what has happened to her daughter. That's just, that means so much to me. And yeah. Love you, sis. What else can you say?
Being a mother and a grandmother in a situation like this is not an easy thing to deal with.
I don't know how you've done it. So today, for just a little while, you can cry some okay tears, okay? These are not sad tears today. In all these years, for all your attempts, you've never been to the point you are today because this man wanted to help you.
Thank you, George.
Okay?
Okay.
PTSD and stage trauma. Try not to remember.
I believe that we're going to know what happened to Brenda. I would like to say, Brenda, that I love you and I'll always love you. And we're going to see each other again one of these days.